And welcome into Delaware Live Sports. Nick Alessandrini here, now joined by Benny Mitchell, Glenn Frazier, and Jason Winchell. And guys, we're getting together here on this Tuesday morning to afternoon to talk a little baseball, softball. A lot has happened in the past week or so in terms of both of those sports here in the spring. A lot of shakeups in the top 10 and a lot to talk about. But first, just going to welcome in Jason, Benny, and Glenn. How you guys doing today?
Fine.
Doing good from the beach, baby. Doing great from the beach.
Gotta love it. It's almost that summertime. Everybody's going to be down there with you soon, Benny.
They've already started. Trust me, traffic is every day. Weekends are horrible.
Well, let's dive right into it. We're going to start with softball, and you guys had a fair share of games last week, and there were some very good ones. I saw a few myself that you guys were streaming and got out to a few, but it's been a fantastic week of shakeups, and we're just going to get started here by going through our top 10, our new top 10. Not sure if this is not even published. I don't believe at the moment we're talking about it. So to get things started, I'm going to start by naming our top 10, and coming in at number 10, a team that was unranked last week, that is Middletown at number 10 at 8-4. Smyrna is now coming in at number 9 with a record of 9-4. Last week they were 6. They dropped to 9. At 8 is the Appoquinimink Jaguars at 9-4 from unranked to number 8. Cesar Rodney was 8 last week. They jump up a spot here at 7 at 12-2 on the year for the Riders. Sussex Tech 11-2 on the season, 7 last week. Now they come up here at 6. And then into our top 5. DMA, they were 2 last week. They fall to 5 here, still though the record of 10-2. And then how about Laurel at 10-3 overall this year? 5 last week. They now bump up to number 4. Good season for them as well so far. And then our top 3, Caravel 11-1, and then St. Mark's at number 2, 10-1. They go from 3-2. And then our top ranked team this week in softball, that though remains unchanged at number 1 from last week, and that is Sussex Central at 13-1. So that is our new Delaware Live Sports top 10 to get things started. And just initial thoughts on this top 10, Jason.
Yeah, well, the softball has not been good to me as far as ranking-wise. It's been one of those years where there's just so many good teams, and they're playing each other and taking wins from each other, and it's been a crazy year for rankings, but it's been a great year, a competitive year, probably one of the best years I've seen in softball. I'm sure Glenn will attest to that. It's been really competitive, and I've seen some outstanding pitchers this year, and if you have a good pitcher in softball, that's the key, and a lot of those teams right up there have great pitching, and it's going to be interesting to see what team gets the better hitting as tournament time comes to see who takes home the trophy this year.
Absolutely. And Glenn, last week you published an article of a Super Saturday, a big week of softball, a big day of softball on that Saturday. You hear this top 10. What's kind of stood out to you in the top 10 and what you've seen recently?
Well, I think like Jason said, you can just jumble up the top 10 and just pick a card. It's so competitive. It's the parity in the state, up and down the state, has just been fantastic. And rightfully so, Sussex Central should be ranked number 1. They've been the most consistent team, losing that opening game to Smyrna and then reeling off 13 straight behind Mads and Layfield. They have only allowed 11 runs in 14 games.
Wow.
13-1, and they've only allowed 11 runs. That's just fantastic. Plus, they can score. They've got a solid offense as well. Now, we saw DMA last night in Caravel. Of course, Jess Walter, Caravel's number 1 pitcher, has been on the shelf for a couple of games now. Danny DeBenedictis filled in nicely, just ran into some trouble in the 6th inning. And what can you say about Jason Frost? I mean, she's been fantastic, maybe the most consistent pitcher, her and Madge Layfield in the state. So DMA, flexing the muscles a little bit. APA right now is about the hottest team. They've won 6 straight as far as the upstate teams go, and they beat Smyrna by a run in extra innings on Saturday. So, it's just, just throw all 10 into the mix right now, and there's probably, I know Jason was wrestling with that number 10 team in Middletown. There's probably 3 or 4 more teams that could easily pop into the top 10.
Yeah, that's so true. This year has been a crazy year for both baseball and softball, just wide open throughout as we approach, tournament time. And Benny, you've been seeing some games, been noticing you've been getting out there down there by the beach. What have you seen recently?
Hey, what's left to say after Glenn's report there? I mean, but all I can do is talk about my alma mater, the Golden Knights. 13 straight wins now. 13 straight, that's an unlucky number. And who do they have today? They have a pretty good team in Sussex Tech at 4:15 this afternoon.
That's right, yeah.
On the road. But the Golden Knights, I mean, it's not just Madge Layfield. Like Glenn said, man, they're putting the bat on the ball, and they're scoring a lot of runs. You're seeing a lot of games where they've scored 5 or more runs. I think the team, when it comes to the tournament time, I think a dangerous team, because you never know when they're going to strike, is Delmar. Delmar's beaten a couple good teams down here. They're 7-7, but that's what makes them dangerous. They had the 10-run rule game over Caravel. They played Sussex Central 5-1, and they just 10-run Padua last Saturday. But the Golden Knights, obviously, right now the cream of the crop. Big test today in Georgetown, right across the highway, and then watch out for the Wildcats come, because it's an open tournament.
Exactly right. And Jason, you heard Glenn mention that there might have been a few other teams that could be creeping in the top 10 soon. Do you want to talk a little bit about those teams outside that are looking in maybe? Do you see any of those teams that maybe could make a run that aren't ranked in the top 10 right now, or do you see most of these teams in the top 10 being the same teams that are going to do damage come tournament time?
Well, one of them is the one Benny just mentioned, Delmar. They were in the top 10. Unfortunately, dropped out after a loss to Indian River. They have great wins, but some strange losses in there too. So, but they're a team come tournament time that, like Benny said, I would not want to play, because they can get hot, and they have some great wins. They beat Caravel, a good win over Padua, who yesterday took it to number 2 St. Mark's in a 5-inning 10-0 win. So
wow.
that Padua team can play. And they're not in the top 10 either, but I mean they just beat the number 2 ranked team, so they can play. And then a team like Concord, who's outside looking in, they're starting to get hot at the right time. They had a good win over a Cape Henlopen team, and they've had some other good wins. They fell short to Middletown, and that was one of the deciding factors in Middletown getting that 10th spot over a team like Concord. But like I said, Delmar and Padua are right there too, and I think Delmar and Padua are teams that nobody wants to play, in those early rounds, because right now they both have good pitching, they both have some good offense, and they both have some quality wins, but they also both have some losses where you don't think they should have lost that game. So that bottom half is all interesting, because they play good games against great teams and then struggle against teams below 500. So it's kind of weird that way.
And Glenn, you mentioned Caravel and Walter, one of their better players, being unable to go the last few games. I know some teams are dealing with injuries and other things that have gone on this year, and at least in the last week or so. Is there any kind of storylines or a team that you're maybe looking to see what happens with, or something that you're keeping an eye on, or a team you're keeping an eye on maybe in these next few weeks as the tournament comes around?
Keeping an eye on all of them, tell you the truth, Nick. We talked about pitching, and Jason mentioned at the top of broadcast that pitching is so paramount in softball. So why don't we give a few props? We already mentioned Frost from DMA. How about Kylie Hill from Laurel? She's having a fantastic year, 7 shutouts. The Bulldogs have a big game at Caravel Thursday. That's a game to keep an eye on. They lost to Caravel in a 1-run game earlier this season, and they've already knocked off DMA. They did that Saturday. That's a game to look for and to see just how strong Laurel is against Caravel, if they can even up their season record with them. Of course, Madge Layfield from Sussex Central. Peyton Dixon from Smyrna. Smyrna's losses have come to Caravel, DMA, Apo, and Laurel, 4 teams ranked in the top 10. So they're still a very solid and dangerous ball club, and they have Cesar Rodney today in a battle of two top 10 teams. You got to mention Thomas from St. Mark's. Peyton Shields from Caesar Rodney, only 2 losses on the season. Sussex Tech goes with the tandem of Parker and Kruger. And, of course, Padua, probably just on the outside of the top 10 looking in with Skirman. And they have an 8-6 record, but, again, they're 2 wins against St. Mark's.
And, Benny, I know you said your eye was on that game here today at 4:15, Sussex Central and Sussex Tech. Obviously a great one, 2 teams both ranked in the top 6. Anything else you're keeping an eye on downstate or anything you've seen?
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on Smyrna because they're the defending champs, and until you beat them, they're still the champs. Like Glenn said, they've lost some good games. Their issue so far this year has been run production. In those low-scoring games, they can win, and they have a tough slate coming up before the tournament. Caesar Rodney today, Sussex Tech Thursday, Caravel following Wednesday, and Red Line to round out the season. I think once you hit the reset button going to the tournament, Smyrna's going to be a team to watch. It's going to be a team that, again, like Del Mar, they're dangerous. And they're the defending champs. And until somebody beats them, they're the champs.
Absolutely true. Yep, coming off that championship. And, again, wide open this year in softball. So many talented pitchers and teams hitting the ball as well this year. And, guys, as we kind of close in on our softball segment here, we're going to play a little game we've got planned for today. Not sure if you guys were ready for it or not, but here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you guys 2 teams. You are going to be the manager for that team, hypothetically speaking here, and you're going to want to tell me a team that you don't want to see come the quarterfinals, come playoff time after May 16th, obviously when the seedings are set. So I'm going to make you guys a manager, and you're going to tell me the team that you don't want to see in the playoffs. Sound good?
Wow, yeah, sounds good.
All right, Jason, I'm going to start with you here. So you're going to be the manager for Caravel here in scenario number 1. What is a team that you don't want to see come playoff time as the manager of Caravel Bucks?
Wow, I'd probably start with that DMA team that they played yesterday. Frost just shut that Caravel offense down, and wow, what can you say? Frost was dominant. And she wasn't striking people out. The good thing was Caravel was making contact, but DMA just did some outstanding job in the field, and then got some runs late in the inning and put it away. But that's one team. That's one team I probably do not want to face in the quarterfinals. I probably do not want to see that DMA, and then probably the other one would be Smyrna. Like Glenn said, and Benny said, they're the defending champs, until they get beaten. And the first time they played, it was a 2-1 game late in the game. Dixon pitched real well, so it's probably a team those are probably the 2 teams I would try and avoid come quarterfinal times. I don't want them seated anywhere where I play them in the quarterfinals.
There you have it. If you're a Buccaneer fan, take a listen to Jason there. And now, Glenn, I'm going to come to you. You are going to be the manager of the 4th-ranked Laurel team. Been playing very well this year. If you're Laurel, who don't you want to see in the quarterfinals, Glenn?
Well, I think you're looking for a team that might be surprising in the early rounds, and not so much one of the better teams that probably are not going to face each other until the semifinal round. Laurel, very good pitching with Kylie Hill. They can hit the ball too. They probably are going to struggle more against a good pitching team, really solid pitcher. So if I look down the line, maybe somebody like Padua could give them an issue with Spurman in an early round game. And they also got to watch out in case they get somebody like Del Mar or even Seaford, because you're talking about a quarterfinal round or earlier, and in an open tournament, it could be somebody like Seaford who beat Laurel by a run earlier in the season. So I think Laurel, they just got to watch out against teams that have the stud pitching or that wants to get into a slugfest with them.
There you have it. There you go. And then, Betty, going to come to you here. You mentioned this team earlier in the broadcast. You talked about Smyrna. Now we're going to put you in the managerial position here for Smyrna. You're the manager. Who don't you want to play if you're the Smyrna Eagles come playoff time?
Well, if you're the Smyrna Eagles right now, you're sitting at 9-4. You could be at 7, maybe an 8 seed. So you could be looking at one of those top teams. I think if you're Smyrna, you don't want. I don't think you want to bump into Sussex Tech again. Mm-hmm. Beat them 5-4. Sussex Tech has gotten. They're going through that little hot cold right now. They were the first team to give Caesar Rodney a loss. But me and Glenn did that game with Caesar Rodney. Sussex Tech can hit and they can play great defense. They don't have the solid pitching that you see. They use a little tandem. They throw 2 pitchers a game, and I think that's a team that if you're Smyrna, that's a team you might see early in the tournament with a 9-4 record. If you just end with the 4 losses, because Smyrna's got a tough road to go here. Remember, I said Caesar Rodney, Sussex Tech, Caravel, and Red Lion. So they're going to play Sussex Tech a second time today or this week.
Yep, there you go. And this is why you guys are the best. I could put you on the spot and have you answer these pretty tough questions. And we're going to keep it going for one more round. Jason, we're coming back to you now. I'm going to put you in a different spot now, a team that's ranked 7th in our top 10 that's coming out this week. They're 12-2 on the year, up a spot from last week, and that is the Caesar Rodney Riders. Jason, talk a little bit about Caesar Rodney, what you know about them, and what don't you want to see come quarterfinal time. Wow, yeah, Caesar Rodney. We're having a fantastic season. I'm like Benny said with Sussex Tech. Caesar Rodney, the pitching's probably not there compared to the other teams. So, come playoff time, I probably don't want to be in go up against one of those stud pitchers like a Sussex Central or St. Mark's that has some good pitching. Padua, another one. But Caesar Rodney can score some runs, and they got probably one of the best catchers in the state. And Sophia Deputy, she's having a great year. But their offense, can score runs. So I think that if in a tight playoff game, they're probably going to struggle against a team that has good pitching. So I probably want to avoid those teams that have some top pitchers in the state, and I'll throw Padua in there. All right, and Glenn, giving you a good one. You got to see them play recently, I believe, and that is Delaware Military Academy. We talked a little bit about Frost and how good she has been. DMA has been good now for a couple years now in a row. They're 10-2 on the year, Glenn. They were 2 last week. You see them fall to 5 come this week's rankings. What is it about DMA you like, and what do you want to avoid come playoff time?
Well, as we mentioned with Grayson Frost, maybe the best pitcher in the state. So they're not going to give up a lot of runs. So I'm going to say she struggled against Sussex Central, but I would be highly, highly surprised if those two met in a quarterfinal game. That would be more a semi or maybe even a title game this year. So they got to watch out for somebody that can score some runs. And what about Delmar? Delmar can put the bat on the ball. They can score runs. And they're the kind of team that they just put the ball in play against DMA, and they could give DMA a little bit of problem. So a team like that's probably somebody that DMA wouldn't necessarily want to see in an opening round game. The other one might be Appo. Appo's starting to come on. Watlington is their pitcher, but they do have some offense. They've got some offensive weapons. So that's the kind of team I think that could play with Frost in an earlier round game. But again, I'd put my money on that Seahawk pitcher.
Yep, there you have it for DMA. Thanks, Glenn. And to round out this round, Benny, we're going to give you're the manager now, hypothetically speaking, of course, of the number 1 ranked Sussex Central Golden Knights. 13-1 on the year, trying to wrap up that, take a number 1 seed into the tournament potentially. What do you like about the Golden Knights, Benny? And what do you not like maybe about a potential opponent come playoff time?
So I get to be John Wells with his 400th win here in softball.
That's right. Congratulations
right.
while we have a moment.
Right. Let's Sussex Central. Well, they've only allowed the most runs they've allowed in a game is 2, and they've done that 4 times. Madge Layfield, she's been tough, and it's not just been Madge Layfield. You look at them; they put the bat on the ball. They score runs. A possible early round quarterfinal game could be the only team to beat them in week 1. Smyrna 2-1. Like I said, Smyrna, we're going to hit the reset after the regular season here in a couple weeks, and I think Smyrna's a tough out for everybody. I know they're not having the season they had when they won the 2 state titles, but they are a contender, and they are the only team to beat Sussex Central this year.
Absolutely. There you guys have it. Jason, Benny, and Glenn, thank you so much for doing that here. A little game for us in this edition of this week's podcast episode. And as we finish up here, guys, our softball segment, we'll go around again one more time. We'll start with Jason, go to Glenn, and then Benny. Maybe just talk about playoffs are just around the corner. Just final thoughts on softball heading into the playoffs, maybe what you're looking forward to come playoff time, or maybe the seedings, anything in particular, just what stands out to you. Just final thoughts here on our softball as we approach that playoff mark here. Jason, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting Sunday, May 16th, when the seedings come out, because that's going to determine a lot. And, all these teams are like Benny said, the Smyrna could be somewhere in that 8-9 seed, and wow, that could be a tough quarterfinal matchup for, at the top seed in the tournament. But a lot of big games coming up these next 2 weeks are going to determine these seedings. Big, a lot of big matchups. You got Caravel Laurel Thursday, like Benny said, Sussex Central, Sussex Tech today. Smyrna's schedule coming in is real tough. Caravel's schedule coming in is real tough. And who knows, when their pitcher will be back. I'm sure they're hoping soon with that tough schedule coming up. So I think it's all going to come down to the Sunday, May 16th, and we see where these teams are seeded and, what are the potential quarterfinal matchups, because, or even a third round matchup, second or third round matchup with the open tournament, because you could face some teams in there that could give you trouble. So it's going to be interesting to see where these teams are seated and where they match up. So these last 2 weeks of the season are real important for the teams, up there in the top 10 as they try and position themselves come tournament time with better seedings.
And Glenn, we talked a little bit about some of the injuries and the games. Are you looking more finding out towards how these teams' rosters are looking come playoff time, or potential matchups, games to that point? What are you looking for here, Glenn, as we wind down softball season?
Yeah, Nick, I think you're right. It's the health. It's who can stay healthy down the stretch here and be back to 100% going into the tournament. Jason mentioned Jess Walter. Danny DeBenedictis has filled in nicely for Coach Randy Johnson's Buccaneers in her absence. They're probably going to keep her on the shelf for another game or two at least to make sure she's healthy for the stretch run, because everybody qualifies that wants to be in the state tournament this year. The seedings are going to be very important to see what the potential matchups will be in the early rounds. But again, it really comes down to pitching. So it's if you can keep your number one pitcher healthy. We're talking about Frost and Hill and Layfield and Dixon, et cetera, et cetera. And the other thing is some of these teams that have not had a lot of run production up until this point, like a Smyrna or DMA. We talked to Coach Allen before the game last night, and he shook his lineup a little bit because he was trying to get some offense, and he found some last night as they banged out double-digit hits and scored 6 runs. So let's see if some teams, as the weather gets warmer, if the bats get warmer, and the run production increases.
Absolutely something to look out for here as we tick down regular season time and into playoffs, and then Benny, round us out here. You've seen some downstate stuff, Sussex Central, etc. Are you looking at maybe one of those teams, keeping an eye on them, or are your eyes on maybe a team up here?
Well, I think the thing is softball is we normally get a top 4 team in the finals. It's usually one of the, 2 of the top 4 teams. It's 1 through 4 usually make the finals. Rarely does a low seed come in softball. I think the last time that happened was 2017. If you look at the years before, the years after, it's one of the top 4. It's usually number 1 or 2 is in that final game. And I don't know how you can look past a team like Sussex Central, who scored 122 runs on the season, and they're only allowing less than a run a game, 0.8 per game. They've allowed 11 runs all season. As Glenn said, as the weather warms up, do the bats get hotter? Do their bats get hotter? I mean, how much hotter can they get? And I think another team that, when you start looking top 4, I think you're looking at maybe right now a DMA or a Sussex Tech. These teams, like you said, like Jason said earlier, they're all beating one another. But I think the favorite has to be Sussex Central, just on the defense. And then you add the 122 runs scored this year.
Well, there you have it. Again, what a season we're having this year in softball. Teams are playing so well. Again, your teams at 1 through 7, 2 or less losses. Again, Laurel there with 3, but they're a 4th-ranked team, and they've got 10 wins. So softball is wide open this year. And, again, the top 5 teams are going to be very tough to beat. And Sussex Central, they still sit atop of our top 10 rankings at number 1. The Golden Knights at 13-1 on the season. Well, we're going to take a little break here. Special thanks to Glenn, Jason, and Benny for joining me here. And now we're going to talk a little bit of baseball right after the break. Make sure to check out our Delaware Live Sports YouTube channel for upcoming games we're broadcasting and past games we have broadcasted that you can view anytime you'd like. Our schedule upcoming will be Thursday. We have St. Mark's and DMA softball. That game will be bringing to you live at 4 o'clock. On Saturday, we have Goldie Beacon playoff baseball, and that's coming to you Saturday afternoon. And then Tuesday, we have St. George's traveling to Apo in a matchup of top 2 baseball teams in the state of Delaware. That one Tuesday at 4:15. All of that is coming up this week on Delaware Live Sports. And welcome back live inside Delaware. Not live. Let me take that back. And welcome back inside Delaware Live Sports. After the break, we just finished up our softball segment a few minutes ago, and now we're going to jump right in to baseball. Glenn Frazier had to go, so he will not be joining us for this discussion, but we're going to pick up where we left off in softball, but now with baseball. We're going to start with the top 10 rankings. Again, they haven't been published yet, so you're going to hear them here first if this comes out before we publish the rankings. And to get us started, we'll get everything started with number 10 and Archmere. They're 8-4 on the season. They were not ranked last week, and they jump in here at number 10 to break the top 10. Sussex Central, the Golden Knights, 10-3 on the season. They were 6th last week, fall back to 9 as we take on this week. And number 8, Cape Henlopen, 5th last week. They fall to 8. They are 10-4 on the year, still there at that 8 spot. And then Sussex Tech, they were 4th last week. They fall to 7th, but they still, again, 12-2 on the year. Good season for Sussex Tech as well as we round out regular season play. And then number 6, Delmar, 8-3 on the year. They go from 8 to 6 as they improve 2 spots here in the top 10. And that takes us into our top 5. Conrad, who we saw with a win over Sally's last week or 2 weeks ago up close and personal. They are making their way up the rankings here. They were 9, now find themselves at 5 here on this Tuesday afternoon at 10-3. St. Mark's was sitting at number 1. They fall to 4 as they record, again, 13-2 for the Spartans. DMA with the big win over St. Mark's last week. You saw on the walk-off, they are 12-2. They go from 2 to 3 here. And then Appoquinimink, who again started the season off preseason rankings at number 1. They've fallen to 8, 9, 10. And then here they are again this week, back up in the top 2 at 10-3, coming from 7-2 this week. And then our top team in the top 10 here for Delaware baseball, a new number 1, 3 last week at 11-2. St. George's Tech Hawks are going to be our top-ranked team here on this Tuesday afternoon. So I'll welcome back in Jason Winchell and Benny Mitchell. Guys, you hear that top 10. Jason, first thoughts.
Yeah, I said it in softball. Here it is in baseball. We had a lot of shakeups last week, and it all started because these top teams all were playing each other. St. Mark's started the week as 1, and then they started the week 12-0. and they go in that stretch and they lose to DMA on a walk-off. Then they lose to Appoquinimink, and they bounce back nicely and beat Sussex Tech. I felt sorry for Sussex Tech. The Spartans, were out for blood in that game, after losing to close ones in the way that they did. Sussex Tech had some big games in the week, so I don't know. They might have pitched their third or fourth pitcher. I'm not certain, but I know that with as many games as they had last week, the pitching matchups, a team like Delaware beats Cape and Sally's, comes back from 7-0 down in the 7th inning to beat Sally's last week, and had a nice win against Cape Henlopen. Cape Henlopen had a struggle last week, but Benny, they lost to Delmar and Appoquinimink, and Appoquinimink won extra innings. So, like I said, in softball, same things happen in baseball. All these top teams are playing each other. Take a team for Archmere, for example. After DMA has the nice win over St. Mark's, they go and lose to an Archmere team that wasn't ranked last week. So I just think, like softball, I think baseball is wide open, and I feel good for the Hawks. They started the year. I saw them their first couple, second game out against Louisiana. They lost 10-run ruled by Sally's, and here we are, with 2 weeks to go in the season, and they're ranked number 1. I would have never thought that if you asked me that. In fact, their only loss since then has been to a nationally ranked Malvern Prep team that St. George's lost in extra innings 10-9. So this St. George's Tech team, they can score some runs. I'm worried pitching depth-wise what they have. But right now they are your top team.
And Benny, you heard the top 10 there, and again, St. George's at number 1. Is anything else stand out to you when we go over the new top 10 for this week?
St. George's is really not a surprise. If you go back and look at the Little League, Senior League over the years, MOT's been one of the top programs in the state, always in the state tournament, always in the state finals, seems like. So, makes sense that a Middletown Appo or a St. George's team could ascend to the top. Looking at, I think baseball is more of a game of survivor, where you're going to see teams get knocked off through the tournament. Softball a little differently. You can throw that hot pitcher every game. Baseball, you can't do that. Baseball, you come down to inning limitations, and it's kind of like who has the deepest staff to get them, to the end, and then the star pitchers come out. I think a team like Cape Henlopen, I think they're a kind of team that's, I feel like, safe to not get beat up early by a lower ranked team because they have some pitching depth. They don't have the great stars that some of these other top teams have, but they've got 5, 6, maybe 7 arms that are solid and that can get them through those early rounds. And I think that's going to be important to not have to beat up your number 1 and number 2 pitcher in this big open tournament.
Yeah, you're right, Benny. I'm going to stick with you here for one more second. You led me kind of into my next question. You're looking at the top 5. You see St. George's, Appo, DMA, St. Mark's, and Conrad, very talented teams up there. And then 6 through 10, you got Delmar, Sussex Tech, Cape Henlopen, Sussex Central, Archmere. You got a good teams there that round out the top 5. You mentioned Cape Henlopen. If you were to take a team outside the top 5 that you think might make the most noise come playoff time, is it the Cape Henlopen team you're talking about, or is it another team that you see there?
I think Cape Henlopen is going to make some noise in this tournament, like I said, because they're going to win some games early where somebody in the top 10, I think, is going to get beat before the quarterfinals. Maybe it's 1 or 2 teams just because of how they fall in pitching. You also got to remember what's going to be coming up here in the next couple, 2-3 weeks, afternoon storms. So games are going to start getting backed up. It's really going to tax the pitchers here. We got that mid-Atlantic weather. They say about Delaware weather, if you don't like it, wait an hour. It'll change for you. And then I think the most dangerous team in baseball is the Mar Wildcats. They've earned 2 huge wins just this past week, and then they beat Sussex Central earlier in the year. They've beaten Cape, and then the winner was Sally's. Granted, it was a 8-run comeback in the bottom of the 7th, but that's why the games are played.
Absolutely right. Again, just like softball, baseball, so many talented teams in the top 10 and beyond. It could be another wide open year, maybe more wide open than we're used to. Jason, I'm going to head to you with the same question. You look at that top 5, you look at that 6 through 10 range. Is there a team that strikes you as able to make some bigger noise maybe than expected, that a team that's not ranked in the top 5?
Yeah, like Benny said, I really like that Delmar team. They have solid wins, and that comeback win against Louisiana, that could trigger something. You down 7-0, and you're struggling. You have like 3 hits or 2 hits up until that point, and then you score an 8-run inning to come back and beat a team like Louisiana, and it drops Sally's out of the rankings. But Sally's is still a good team, and I just think that could spark something with that Wildcats. And then the other one is Sussex Tech. They're 12-2. Their 2 losses are to St. George's Tech and St. Mark's, and both are up in the top 5. They have some quality wins, including a win over that Cape Henlopen team. Sussex Tech, I saw them. They can hit the ball. I'm just worried about their pitching depth. And I think that showed against St. Mark's, in a week where both of them played 3 games. St. Mark's had the deeper staff. And so when it came to that Saturday game, I just think that was the difference in it. And I really like that Sussex Tech team. I just don't know, if they have the pitching depth to maybe get to the finals. But I really like the Wildcats, Delmar. I really think they're a team that can make some noise come tournament time.
All right, and guys, now we're going to do what we did in our last softball segment, and that is going to be, I'm going to pick a team for you guys, and you are going to be the manager of that team. We can talk a little bit about that team if you'd like, and then talk about maybe a team that you might not match up against well, or a team you don't want to see come playoff time, maybe early in the playoffs. It worked well with softball, so we'll take it here right into baseball. And Jay, I'm going to start with you here, and the team I'm going to give you up first is going to be a team that's been fluctuating up in these rankings, but a very talented team nonetheless, and they stand at number 2 right now at 10-3, and that is the Appoquinimink Jaguars. Jay, and talk a little bit about Appo and what you might not want to see come playoff time.
Yeah, if I'm Appoquinimink, first of all, I struggled at the beginning of the season. I think it had to do with Carrier. Miami, he's going to the University of Miami. They put some limitations on him on stuff that he couldn't do. He had to switch positions. You lost your stud pitcher, not able to pitch, and I think they struggled early. But now I think they got their pitching rotation in line, and Carrier's a beast at the plate, and they're following in. But they had big wins over DMA and St. Mark's in the last 2 weeks. Those are 2 teams I did not want to see. Before the quarterfinals or before the semifinals even, because those 2 teams have revenge on their mind, and both have good pitching staffs that can give Appo problems. But if I'm the Jaguar coach manager right now, I am feeling pretty confident because my team came from an early hole where we had 3 losses back to Louisiana, Sussex Central, and Concord, who is not in the rankings but is having a fantastic season. I believe Concord was 10-3 last time I looked. So it's going to be interesting, but I would want to avoid DMA and St. Mark's. I think they have that R word in mind, and 2 teams I probably would not want to see before the semifinals.
Absolutely, and Appo, again, one of the top teams in the state. They have championship aspirations, and Benny, now I'm going to go to you with a team that you know pretty well. You might be able to walk over there. Cape Henlopen at 10-4. They were 5th last week. They fall to 8 here this week, and they've got some talent, as you mentioned. They've got some depth. How do you see them doing, and what is a team that you don't like the matchup with Cape?
The thing with Cape is they're, like I said, they're they're deep in pitching. Like I said, they don't have the big names, the all-state pitcher, but they have 4 to 6, maybe it's a 7th arm coming up off the JV for the tournament. That's going to win those early games for them and not tax their top 2 guys early in the tournament. I think if you're them, they just lost to Appo. First of all, there's 11 teams with 3 or less losses right now in baseball. So you're going to see a good team in the quarterfinals. You're going to see a real good baseball team in the quarterfinals if you get that far. I think if you're Cape, you don't want to see Sussex Tech early, and that's a possibility. That could be a quarterfinal game, maybe even a round before, depending on how things finish out. Tech beat them 2-4 or 4-2 back in on Tax Day, April 15th. And I just don't think that's a team you don't want to catch them early. You want to catch them in the semis or later.
And if you're listening, Cape Henlopen, there you go. And now we're going to take a step up here for you, Jay. We're going to go up the rankings to the number 1 ranked team in the top 10. We already talked about them a little bit here on this episode. It's the St. George's Tech Hawks. They, again, you said got 10-run ruled by Sally's early in the year. Look at them now, 11-2. That only loss coming to Malvern. Since that loss to Salesianum, they're the top-ranked team in the state, Jay. What do you like about them? But maybe what is a team you don't want or don't like a matchup with them?
What I like is they're a very talented team on offense, and they've had some quality wins since that loss to Salesianum. Nice win over Sussex Tech. They can score some runs. If I'm a manager, I'm worried a little bit about the pitching depth, and like Benny said, with so many teams with 3 losses and less, you're going to get a good third round / quarterfinal matchup. So a team I'd probably want to avoid is maybe that Sussex Tech team again, or even an Archmere. Archmere is one of the red hot teams. After Milford beat them, they were struggling. They were sitting 3 games below 500, and since then have won 6 straight. They're right there at 8-4. They're coming at their wins are coming against some good teams like DMA. So that's probably a team. One team. St. George's Tech beat Archmere earlier this year, and a team that I might want to avoid. And I also probably want to avoid that Salesianum team again. They seem to have the Hawks number in the first game. I mean, you don't see many 10-run rule with a lot of these teams in the top 10, and that one just got away from St. George's Tech early, and it's probably a team I want to avoid too.
So there you have it. Jay talking about St. George's and Appo as his 2 teams where he's the hypothetical manager. Benny, you had Cape Henlopen. Now for round 2, you're going to get 7-ranked Sussex Tech at 12-2. They were 4 last week. They find themselves at 7 this week. You heard Jay talk about that tough loss to St. Mark's. Talk a little bit about Sussex Tech, Benny, and talk a little bit about what you like about them and maybe a matchup that you're not looking forward to if you're their manager.
Well, Sussex Tech following a couple, they're down to they're a good 7-ranked team. They've had 2 tough losses here in the last week and a half. Who'd they lose to? St. George's, St. Mark's. I think that 10-1 game's an anomaly. I don't know. St. Mark's maybe, are they 9 runs better? Not sure of that, but they beat them 10-1, so it goes in the record books. Sussex Tech is they kind of start slow, and they just kind of score like a drum beat. They just score here and there, and they score anywhere from 4 to 7 runs on average. They have a couple shutouts this year and a couple 1-run games, so they're obviously playing good offense, playing good defense. Sussex Tech, they're probably going to be a top 4 to 6 seed, which is going to get them a 12 to a 14 which is going to be a good team. I think a team you could see in there is the Mar Wildcats team that they beat 2-0, but they beat them 2-0 in March. The world difference between March and May and June. That's the team I wouldn't want early on. I don't think anybody in the tournament right now wants Delmar, especially in those first 3 rounds. Yeah, everybody, the top teams, they want to kind of save the top guys as long as they can. And I don't think you're going to beat Delmar with your 3rd guy or your 4th guy.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Benny, for sure. And before we wrap up this baseball segment, just the last question I have for you guys here, and maybe you already know the team, maybe you already talked about the team, but same thing we did with softball, a team outside the top, in this case, I'm going to say outside the top 4, St. George's Tech, Apo, DMA, and St. Mark's. And this is in terms of championship aspirations. What team do you guys, if I had to put you on the spot right now, outside of the top 4, that maybe has a chance to bring home a title here in 2021, Jay?
Wow. All right. I know we haven't mentioned this team yet, but Conrad, they are 5th right now. They were 9th last week. They were non-ranked for a while. They're sit there 10-3. They have some big wins, but recently, their 3 losses early in the season were to Appoquinimink, St. Mark's, and DMA, 2, 3, and 4. So that's a team. We got to see them against Louisiana. They got real good pitching. They also had some timely hits, and they played some really great defense. They held that St. Mark's team to 4 runs in a tough loss to them. They held DMA to 4 runs, and the only game where they gave up a lot of runs early in their loss was to Appoquinimink, and that was the first game of the season where they struggled to throw strikes. So that's a team, Conrad sitting right there, right outside that top 4, that I think is making the noise. They're one of the hottest teams right now, and they had a double-header win, 2 wins on Saturday. So they're heading in the right direction, and but they're going to have to get by those 3 teams that and maybe all 3 of the teams that beat them earlier this year. So that could be tough. But if I had to go outside those top 4, I'm going to go with Conrad.
Yeah, Conrad, they looked good in that win over Sally. Yeah, we did that game, and they've got some hitters. They can pitch. And yeah, definitely a team to look out for are the Red Wolves. Now, Benny, I go to you here. Another tough spot. A team maybe you think has an outside shot to come in with and maybe win a championship here in 2021. I'm
going to pick 2 teams I think can do it. Because I think baseball, unlike softball, we rarely see 1 and 2 meet in the finals. A lot of times we see a high number or a low number, however you want to say it, seed to make it down. So I think offense is going to be key in the baseball tournament. And like I said, baseball tournament is going to be a game of survivor. Who can outlast who to the end. So when I say the teams that put runs on the board, Sussex Central, 11.8 runs a game this year. That's going to be key coming into the tournament. But the team I think could surprise everybody, it's Louisiana. They're going to go on the road a little bit in like the quarters, but semis and finals are played in their backyard up at Frawley, so they'll be at home for the last 2 games they can make that for. I think 2 teams that have a real legitimate shot from outside the top 4, it's Louisiana and Sussex Central.
There you go, a full baseball load here today on Delaware Live Sports. Again, St. George's Tech, they come in as your number 1 ranked team this week. Again, coming from that 3rd spot last week. Again, our top 10s will be coming out shortly on DelawareLiveSports.com. And guys, any last words before we finish up our baseball segment?
Big. Go ahead, Jack.
I was just going to say, this open tournament is going to be fun this baseball season because, like Benny said, there's so many great teams, with 3 losses or less. A lot of teams get different contrasts. We've had some good pitching teams. We have some great hitting teams. And it's going to be interesting to see where they all match up. But I think this could be one outstanding baseball tournament this year.
Hey, 2 big games for the price of 1 today. You have to kind of look and see what what they're allowing for fans right now. At Sussex Tech, you have a big top 10 softball game. You have a big top 10 baseball game with the Sussex Tech Ravens hosting the Sussex Central Golden Knights. They're only a few miles between the two schools. Big rivalry. Tournament seating on the line, rankings on the line. Fields are right next to one another. You can get two for the price of one.
There you go. Perfect. Well said. And thank you guys so much as we wrap up our baseball segment. From all of us here at Delaware Live Sports, Nick Alessandrini, Jason Winchell, and Benny Mitchell. Not a lot of time left before the playoffs. They're right around the corner, and we're all going to get together for a little soccer, lacrosse, other spring sports show here in a little bit. So for everyone here at Delaware Live Sports, we'll see you next time.